Hi, I'm Kat, marketer turned brand storyteller.
And I'm Candice, educator turned entrepreneur.
And you're listening to
Not Nice, Clever.
We're two introverts who speak on stages around the country and work with top personal brands who also unapologetically require 24 to 48 hours of recovery time on the couch in our favorite sweats. All Netflix and no chill.
And to be clear, we're not quiet or nice. Together, we're redefining what it means to be an introvert who means business. It's time to show up and show off. Are you in?
In today's episode of Not Nice Clever, we are talking about mastering the art of listening and how it's actually the underdog, the underrated secret weapon in business, especially when you are an introvert. So if the idea of pitching yourself to clients or having to have your elevator pitch ready for a networking event or having to share your rates with someone and negotiate what you're going to get paid, if all of that is making you feel sweaty as I'm saying it, this episode is for you. And so that's what we're diving into today, all things listening. And honestly, I don't know about you, Candice, but I feel like we as introverts have the upper hand here. Not to say that extroverted or ambivert folks can't listen, but we have a special way of leveraging this to our advantage.
I'm thinking about being in a networking event, one where I particularly don't know anyone and I don't feel like I have the upper hand. Maybe I'm in an entirely new circle where people don't know me either. And I have been in those situations with friends who are maybe taking me along as their partner. And sometimes they will be in a group and there's people gathered around the friend that I'm with, and I'll be super quiet. They'll be talking to him or her. And I will just be taking mental notes on everyone and what they are saying, what they're talking about, what they're struggling with. And I'm an Enneagram 5 who is the detective who's like, ooh, this person needs, and I'm like already assigning the next right step in my mind for what they need for their brand or what they need for their social strategy or what they need for, I don't know, maybe their confidence.
Their
I'm thinking
wardrobe.
about
I mean, don't forget about wardrobe.
their wardrobe,
Girl.
all of it, of course. Yeah. And I think what's great about that is that maybe in that moment I'm not making that immediate connection, but I am noting things that I know are going to be important to that person. And I use that when I'm later sitting in bed in the hotel room watching Netflix.
Doing your follow-up?
I'm doing my follow-up. I'm like, hey, we met downstairs when we were talking about XYZ. It was great to meet you. I know that you were struggling with X, Y, and Z, and I have this thing that I think would be really helpful. Or I read this article, or I read this book that was helpful for me when I was struggling with that. And immediately I'm giving them something that they feel like is valuable. And I'm not selling anything. I'm just like, hey, I've been there. I've done that. I read this book that helped me. Here it is. And people are always so impressed by that, particularly if they thought I wasn't engaged or they thought I wasn't paying attention.
Right. Or listening or present.
Yeah. Or maybe they didn't even know, they didn't notice I was there.
Right.
Because I was so
How
quiet.
dare they, by the way,
And
just have to say
I
that.
know. But I think that has actually been a really powerful tool to help me connect with people, because if I'm too shy or I don't know what to say, I'm still taking in the information.
Yes. And I think this was something that I have learned along the way. So in my creative agency days, when I was Girl Friday instead of the brand architect, and I wanted clients and I wanted to work with any small business that needed help with social or events or branding, right? Like you were saying. And I would go into those meetings, those like consultations or those pitch meetings armed with like a 47-page slide deck.
Oh
And
God, not
the
the slide
deck,
deck.
Candice, it was,
Oh my
designed in the
gosh.
early days of Canva. And I would overthink all of my talking points. And I would think, okay, this is what I offer right now. But if they need this, I can also figure out how to offer it. And I'm just going to like add it and put it in my list of services because they're going to think I'm so impressive that I can do all these things. And I just need to sell myself to them so that they believe I can. And it's not a no.
Just a spiral.
It is a spiral. Yeah. And what I've learned is that listening allows you to understand what's actually important to the other person. It takes all of the guesswork out of sales. And if you can't see me, there's heavy double rabbit ear air quotes around that. And it's so easy to do. And the other thing too that I really like that felt really empowering to me was, I can't remember where I read it. I know we were just talking about books before we hopped on here, but it said there's this saying that says the person who asks the questions controls the conversation. And so if
Yeah.
you're listening and responding and asking questions and just allowing that other person to basically tell you everything that they need help with, you can shorten
Yep.
and narrow whatever it is you're trying to solve, right? You were saying you're not selling anything, you're just solving a problem, a gap, a
Yep.
need.
One thing that really helped me in my consultations is coming at consultations from the standpoint of curiosity, because I definitely used to have the desperate energy getting on a
Oh my God, we
consultation being
all
like,
did.
my job right now is to convince this person that I am the perfect one for the job, and that the amount of money that I'm asking for is equivalent to the
Is
value that they'll receive.
worthy. Like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and I used to think that,
Yeah.
and I never think that anymore. My my new way of thinking is coming from more of a place of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they booked this call for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
likely because they have a problem, and because for some reason they think I can help them with that problem. Maybe because of some content they saw,
Mm-hmm.
maybe because of an email that they read,
Mm-hmm.
maybe because a friend said that I was the one to help them, but they think I can help them already,
Mm-hmm.
which helps me to understand that I'm actually in a position of power here.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my first questions that I ask is, why now? Why are you coming to me with this issue now?
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll give me very specific reasons, because I realize I'm wasting so much time spinning my wheels trying to do this by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know by wasting time, I'm leaving money on the table. I'm coming to you now because every time I open up Canva to make a flyer, it takes me 3 hours because I don't know what my colors should be and I don't know what my design
And I
should look
don't even
like,
know who I'm
and
talking
I'm
to.
wasting my
Yeah.
I don't yeah, and I'm just wasting my time doing this, and I don't wanna waste my time anymore. And, right now is the right time because I'm starting a new team and I know that I wanna start it off on the right foot. And so they have specific reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and so towards the end of our conversation, I say, and because right now you're starting this team and you want to start off on the right foot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm using the exact
The
words that they
language.
gave me to help them see that, draw the line. This is the thing that's going to help you get what you said that you wanted, not what I think you need
Mm-hmm.
or what I think is the next right step, but what you said you wanted originally on this call.
Mm-hmm.
And so listening, that's actually a strategy called mirroring, using your client's own words, exact words, not paraphrases,
Mm-hmm.
to help them understand that this is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, not in a manipulative way. Only all of this is always genuine.
Well, you know what I was just about to say? Like, as you were talking about, like, it gives you the power. I'm like, and with great power comes great
Yeah,
responsibility. Thank you, Stan Lee.
absolutely.
Right? So, introverts listening to this, use this wisely, because if you don't, it will bite you in
She's
the
always
ass.
figuring out a way
I,
to
you
bring in
know, I
comics,
know. I'm just
like,
missing
okay.
my Marvel vibes. I'm excited to see Dune too. I haven't seen it yet. Still not filling the gap that the Avengers left. But yes. Well, and mirroring, right? Again, just going back to the fact that we're all in business with other humans. And even if other humans are wired differently than you, doesn't mean that we don't have the same rhythms and processes and how we connect. And using people's own language makes them feel at home. It gets through to them, right? It connects with them. You're not actually pitching. And honestly, the only thing you have to arrive to any situation with is knowing what problems you are qualified to solve. That way you don't say yes to everything. And two, curiosity to see if you can actually help that
Yep.
person or refer them to the next best person who can. In which case,
Yes.
that person you're talking to will love you forever for connecting them with the person to solve their problem, which is great.
And I'd also argue that that is brand building.
Oh, yeah.
If I am not equipped to help you with the problem that you're presenting me with, but I can connect you with someone who I know can,
Mm-hmm.
that person I'm on that consultation with will build trust with me.
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not selling them something that they don't need. And they know I'm still happily going to connect them with a person who I think can help them. And they're going to say my name first in a room where it matters because they had a good experience with me. And something as small as that, when people ask us, what is brand?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of brand.
Hugely. Prioritizing the person over like whatever potential profits you could make from a one-off sale and not having that limited, desperate mindset. That truly
Hmm.
trust relationships business. Trust like that's the order of operations and definitely. I'm so glad that you brought it up to that as well. Yeah. I love it.
You're out there building your personal brand and you also have a team relying on you. But if your people don't know how to fish for themselves, the burden of new business always falls on you. Ouch, no thanks.
The opportunity we see, teach your team how to generate their own business.
The result, more time and energy back in your day so you can scale sans burnout.
Amplify by Not Nice, Clever is the ace up your sleeve, a hands-on workshop full of replicable frameworks and actionable strategies that your team can put in place right away.
Your job? Sit back and let us work our magic.
Even CEOs need help sometimes. We've got you. Head to our show notes to get the deets. #outsourced.
So one of the books that really is a great tool to have in your toolkit if you know you're a good listener and you want to continue to increase your listening skills, or maybe you're not so great of a listener and you know that it's something you want to work on. A book that I read called Exactly What to Say: The Magic Words for Influence and Impact. It's by Phil Jones. And here it is. This is what it looks like. If you want to have some kind of go-to phrases to help you out with your clientele, with sales, with customers, this book is really good. Each chapter has a short phrase or kind of strategy that you can use. Yeah. And for me, to have frameworks and to kind of gamify things as an introvert kind of makes me feel more comfortable. I want to be able to be like, okay, I remember I learned the tactic of mirroring, and that can help me seem like maybe a more active listener. And I want to be an active listener, so I'll use that strategy where I think some people it just like comes very naturally to them. But for me, since I'm trying to build the relationships, any tool that I have or a checklist that I can feel like I'm following makes me more confident. And so if you're an introvert and you feel like you need tools, I don't think there's any shame in it. I think that it's going to help you to present as the best version of yourself.
Yeah. I read that book. That's such a good book. It was recommended to me by one of my clients, Richard McDonough, out of Stillwater, Minnesota, and Candice, you know Richard. We love Richard. And two activities really come to mind, like that go along with this theme of mastering the art of listening and how to leverage it in business. So one of them was, now this is something I am always getting better at, and I'm a lot better at now than I was years ago, but asking for the business, right? Asking for the sale, asking for the opportunity to serve someone instead of going at it head on direct, which I'm sure people who are more extroverted or ambiverted would have absolutely no problem being like, Candice, so when are you booking me to speak at your event, right? And the idea of me doing that so directly, I was like, oh. But what if, imagine this, I say, Candice, who do you know that's in need of a speaker in the areas of personal branding and leadership? Who do you know? And because human beings are lovely, self interested people, we fill in the who do you know with who do I know? And so you're indirectly asking them. And when I've used this, I love using this phrase. More often than not, they'll be like, well, come to think of it, I actually need someone. But you didn't like put the pressure on them, right? You're like, who do they know? You're getting them to be curious and to like reflect. And it's such a helpful tool. And then you're like, oh,
I have a real life
you
story of
do?
this that just happened literally yesterday.
Okay.
So I have a goal for how many appearances I want to make every month this year. And appearances I count as if I'm speaking on a stage or if I'm hosting a webinar with
Yeah,
people
virtual or in
in,
person.
virtual webinar or in person, right? And so I have a goal for those appearances, and I was like, oh shoot, I'm not at my goal in the middle of the month. I know I need to book a few more things. So I took that strategy. I said, okay, I'm going to ask my 5 coolest friends who they know.
Yeah.
And of course, my friends want to help me and I help them with stuff. So it's not a big deal.
Obvi.
So then I just messaged 5 friends and I was like, hey guys, this is my goal. Who do you know? And each one of them responded with someone who they think would be great. And I booked one podcast and I have a talk with someone, like to talk about what we could do together from those 5 people. And it happened in 24 hours.
2 out of 5 opportunities right there.
And I haven't followed up on all of them. So I think that some of them will also, there'll be more than just 2, but in 24, 48 hours, I already booked 2 out of those 5.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and that is enough to hit my goal.
Right.
But I'm obviously going to work on next month.
Obviously.
So it helps. And the thing is, reciprocal relationships. Another thing that helps is that all those friends who I message, they've already worked with me. They've already experienced me. They understand my vibe and they understand the right person for me. And that's really key because you may feel shy or intimidated to ask if people haven't experienced what it's like working with you. But you can ask people who have experienced you. And those people will be excited to share.
And this is a great exercise and demonstration of quality over quantity, which I feel like is one of our personal mantras, because one of the misconceptions I had, not being a naturally extroverted, gregarious person, was that I needed a massive email list or a massive following in order to make an impact or build a business with which I could stand on, on my own 2 feet. But I've learned that that's not the case, and you're continuing to demonstrate that, and that you just needed 5 people that knew you, that knew your vibe, and knew the right person that would appreciate working with you, rather than thousands of followers or thousands of subscribers or thousands of views. I think we get it's easy. It was easy for me in the past to get so caught up in those like vanity metrics or those big metrics, which I would then just use as an excuse to not take any action.
Yeah.
I saw your face light up when I said that.
Yeah. Because yesterday I was planning out content and as I always do, I was like, what am I most annoyed at right now? And I wrote down all the things I'm most annoyed at hearing. Yes. I wrote them down. And one of the things is that people think more followers or more views is what they need. And so I know I'm going to make a reel coming up this week about how views don't equal leads. And I have the perfect example because as a real estate agent, you guys know I primarily work with real estate agents. The entire goal as a real estate agent is to generate leads. If you can generate leads, you have someone to do the business, right? You could generate more leads than you can handle. That's fine. We hope you have that problem and we'll figure out what to do when we get there. Exactly. But so if generating leads is your goal, and it's probably the goal of every business, then how do we get there? Well, it's not correlated to just views. So I'll give you a perfect example. I don't have the exact numbers and I want to have the exact numbers for the reel, but something like this. I got 1 million views on a reel. And it wasn't a dog reel, okay? It was a reel of me on stage. That was my first viral reel. Was Piper and Blaze playing with one another on my daybed. Okay, hilarious. Okay. So that's everyone's first viral reel typically is dogs, but dogs aren't going to help you build your brand, okay? So here's the thing. My viral clip was actually me on stage talking about what I love talking about, branding and marketing. So that's great. And that seems like exactly what you would want, right?
Of all the reels to go viral, you drawing correlation between human first, people want to do business with humans, period, right?
Using my voice on stage, whatever. That's blazer, the ideal way. Yep, exactly. Okay. I booked 26 consultations that week.
Okay.
Look, my average consultations that I take per week are 4 or 5.
Okay. 1 a day. It's good.
So 26 in 1 week
5 times
is a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So guess how many people showed up? And these are approximate numbers because I haven't actually sat down and like filled it out. Guess how many people?
Well, from when I used to work with like teams that had remote closers, like it was a 50% show rate and then a 33% conversion rate of those people that showed. That's my experience. Okay. What were your
I had less I think it's 4 or less that showed up.
What the fudge?
I know. And
that
my
is
normal
not
conversion
good.
I know. And my normal conversion rate is 75% because people who book me already know me. Their friend already worked with
Right.
me. They've already been
Or they've
listening to
been
our
following
podcast.
you.
Like
Yeah.
they've already decided. They're just like, where do I sign, Candice?
Mhm.
Right? That's on branding. So I maybe spoke with 4 of those people who were total strangers who came to me from the viral reel.
Mhm.
And guess how many of those people bought from me?
0.
0. So here's the thing, y'all. I'd rather make a reel that generates 4 or 5 consultations that I know I'm going to close with a 75% close rate,
Mhm.
because that equals more money in my bank.
Mhm.
And that reel might talk to a very specific audience that's not everyone on Instagram,
Mhm.
and that's okay. And actually, Neil, our friend Neil Dingra, just posted a reel about this too, that views don't equal leads.
Mhm.
Views don't equal money in the bank. And I'd rather focus on, building my wealth
Mhm.
for myself and my family.
Mhm. I mean, just small goals over here.
Just small goals,
Yeah.
obviously.
I think it's so important to understand that. Like the quality over quantity, it's not an excuse to not take action and to also like again, listen, be curious, ask questions because that person that you meet at that event or that potential client that you might be working with, do not assume that they're like too cool for school and they're totally okay. There's a reason they're in that room. There's a reason
Yeah.
that they're having a conversation with you.
And it's not to say that like I don't want to go viral. I'm just saying that it's not everything that you think it's going to be.
Mhm.
And maybe those 4 people who I did have conversations with are now going to follow me, and in 6 months or a year they might, work with me. Just know that it's not that immediate thing that you think it's going to be.
Mhm.
And I'd rather you foster really deep relationships with people who are excited about your message, are excited about the problem that you solve, and
Mhm.
are happy to connect you with the next right person than, a stranger on the internet who you're so stuck on trying to convert.
Yeah.
Another thing that people tell me all the time is
Mm.
I got business from Instagram, but it was my, cousin's friend. I'm like, well, that counts. Just because they're not a total stranger.
Right. Here's I literally was recommending this to a client this week. Thank you so much for opening up this can of worms. Okay. If you're listening and you are able without, endangering yourself if you're driving a motor vehicle right now, take out a pen, write down these 2 questions. Whenever you are able to do business with someone, you get hired, right? You get booked. You take on a project. Ask them 3 questions, right? No, maybe 2. Well, let's start with the 2. 1, how did you first hear about me, right? Candice, I first heard about you because so and so said that you hosted a workshop for their team and that you did a really great job. Cool. That's how I first heard about you. But then when they're booking that consultation, what finally convinced them to want to work with you? And that's where I've
Hmm.
seen I had this one client do this audit of all of the clients he worked with in the past 10 months because he was like, I'm doing all these things. It's just not getting me business. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I got curious. I asked a question. I was like, what evidence do you have to support that hypothesis? And he was
Hmm.
like, I was like, okay. We're going to call him Mason. That's not his name, but like Mason. I was like, I want you to go back. Everybody you've ever worked with in the past 10 months, you ask them these 2 questions. What he found was that there were people that heard about him through word of mouth, through referrals, through family, through friends, and that did work with him that were convinced just purely because somebody referred them, right? So, yes, word of mouth referrals, we love that for you. But there were several instances. And when people said, yeah, so and so told me about you, but I work with them and I don't really know them personally. So I Googled you and then I saw your website and then it took me to your socials and I got to see all your video content. And you seem like a really genuine young man. She called him like a genuine young man. And that was what convinced her to work with him. And there were several other
Yep.
instances. Never assume. Never assume.
You
Because
never
there's 2
assume.
things how you hear about somebody and then what convinces them, right?
Yes, and both parts are super
Yeah.
important. And that's why we love for you to have a library of content
Hmm.
that is the digitization of your reputation, as Rory Baden says, because when someone does go to look you up or lightly stalk you on the internet,
Hmm.
you want your message to be loud and clear, or at least clear if you're an introvert and you don't like to be loud.
Hmm. Unless you're like me and
Or if you're Chris
Candace.
Doe. Yeah.
Or if you're Christo and you're just a loud introvert. Although I feel like the loud is in reference to his wardrobe and his visuals rather than his
Yeah,
voice. Because he has a very soft, genuine
I
voice,
agree.
right?
And he has like very unlike me, he has very good control of his, like, I don't know, what do you call it? His vibe.
Mhm.
Or like my vibe is like up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah. You got some
I get
spice. You
passionate.
got some spice.
I get
That's
passionate.
okay though. We
But
pull the spice out in
but
one
he's like a
another.
very controlled
Mhm.
in his execution,
Mhm.
which I appreciate.
Right. Which is literally perfect example in that you can really leverage listening in business, like in conversations, in pitches, in your content. Uh, Candice, I know this is true for you. The majority of my content is me listening to what my clients are struggling with. And then it gives me purpose and energy to want to capture or record and share something that solves that problem because I don't like seeing people struggle. And if they're open to my help, I'm going to
Yes.
listen to what it is, not what I think they're struggling with
Right.
in my head, in my little home office here in DC. I'm going to listen to them. And then that's this whole podcast, by the way.
The whole
The whole
podcast
thing,
is
y'all.
us listening and recording content based on what you're telling us. So I made a reel the other day and I said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but there's people with less experience than you
Mm.
making more money than you
Mm-hmm.
simply because you're making content.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd that come from? Because I can't tell you how many consultations I've had with senior agents who have sold many houses,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of houses, who are like, all these young real estate agents, they just think it's about content. They're making content. They're taking over our market, but they don't even know what they're doing.
Hmm.
Like, oh,
Interesting
interesting.
projection.
Very interesting. They don't know what they're doing. And you know what? That might be true
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't sold as many houses. They don't have as much experience as the agent I'm talking to. But agent I'm talking to, if you have all of this amazing credibility and
And
experience
nobody knows you even
and
exist.
nobody knows you exist except the people in your neighborhood, um, imagine what could happen if we use social media to amplify your message and your expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, then they come deflated. They're like, oof, feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, dang, if it could work for someone who's brand new,
Right.
it should definitely be able to work for you with all of the knowledge, experience, stories that you have to
Mm-hmm.
share. And so that's how the idea for that reel came. And one of the comments on that reel said, dang, next time just at me. And I was like, that is the best compliment because
Seriously.
if someone feels like
Called
you're just
out.
calling
Yeah.
that person out, then that means your content is hitting the right person.
This brings to mind another like reason why listening is so powerful because you listening, right, and really understanding what that senior agent or even just somebody who's been in the industry or in the business, right? They're a vet, they're a master, they're a pro, they're not adapting with the times. You're listening and then you're creating something that now when it's shown to everyone makes them feel like you're in their head and you didn't even have
Yeah.
to try, and yet you're already Jedi mind tricking them into wanting to work with you. Like that is the beauty of listening and understanding and not backing down from when you do have an opinion, a perspective. And you can record it in the comfort of your own home or apartment with no audience because we know what that makes you feel like, introverts. But hit record and share it and see what happens.
I think I have to make a clarification for the Clever Crew because when I
Okay.
said senior agent, I didn't mean anything to do with age. I'm a senior brand
Oh, I
strategist, and
knew
I don't think
that.
that's because of my
Okay.
age. I think it's because of my experience. Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure the Clever Crew knows that
Yeah.
because I'm like, wait, did they think nothing to do with age? I'm talking about years in the industry.
No, I mean, and look, my dad's technically in the senior age bracket. If you called him that, he'd be like, "Oh, Candace, that's so funny," because he doesn't even see himself that way. So yes, no, we meant experienced. We meant you've got decades of expertise,
Yes.
but the game has changed with digital,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't want you to be dinosaurs that get like meteor bombed by like whatever latest social media platform or strategy or tactic comes about. We want you to be able to evolve
Yep.
and adapt.
That's right.
So we hope you have enjoyed this slight soapbox, slight TED Talk, slight full episode on the art of listening and mastering it and how it can help you put more money in the bank. If you have thoughts or you feel like we should have added you in this episode, please slide into our DMs on Instagram at Not Nice Clever, and we will catch you next week for a new episode.
Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow our podcast wherever you listen to audio.
And if you found today's episode valuable, please share it with your friends.
No gatekeeping here. Remember, we love to see our clever crew grow.
Signing off, you're not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.